Ahead at 6, advocates say they're concerned about another increase of immigration enforcement, where they say more people are being detained coming up. And
strong volunteer fire departments are built by strong communities.
Tonight, we take a closer look at the role volunteer fire departments play in Maine in the aftermath of the fire in Searsmont, why first responders say they need more help now.
And we're tracking developments in the race for governor. Christian Harsa takes us on the campaign trail as a new poll sheds some light on the upcoming primaries. The news at 6 starts right now.
Good evening. Thanks for being with us. I'm Brian Yacono.
And I'm Amanda Hill.
We will get to those stories and a lot more in just a moment. First, let's bring in meteorologist Ryan Brett. Look at our forecast. You were telling us about an hour ago, maybe a pleasant evening to spend outside tonight.
It is beautiful out there right now. The dew point's already dropping in most places. The air drying out. I had to show you the live view out over Casco Bay and Fort Gorges right now. The heat and humidity are quickly moving out. The next few days look comfortable, and by Friday morning, it may be chilly enough for some frost in parts of the state. That's how much cooler the air mass moving in will be. Right now, it's still in the upper 80s over down East Maine, Wiscasset at 57, Portland at 83. But look at the mountains in north. 68 from Rangeley to Caribou. That's the cooler air that's going to be moving in tonight as the front has already gone by offshore. The winds are kicking up a little bit on the backside. A dry breeze out of the northwest gusting to 30+ miles per hour. And that means by morning we're ushering in chillier air. Lows will be in the 30s up north, mid 40s around Bangor, and lower 50s over far southern Maine first thing in the morning. Nice looking day ahead tomorrow. Could be a few clouds that mix in through the morning in southern Maine. Otherwise lots of sunshine with highs tomorrow between 60 and 65. That's a big change after 2 days of record-breaking heat. For much more on the numbers, the records that fell, we'll send it outside to meteorologist Dana Osgood. And Dana, can you already feel the humidity is dropping a little bit versus earlier today?
Ryan, I don't think so. I still feel a lot of that heat and humidity really because the sun is just beating down on us here at Willard Beach. But it's not a bad beach day, and there have been plenty of people here trying to beat the heat on, like you said, our second day of record-breaking heat. In fact, a couple of spots broke their records today. Bangor, Portland, and Augusta all broke their record high temperatures today. That is preliminary at this time. Even Caribou, which had a high of 65 degrees yesterday, was within a few degrees of their record high before that front passed through. Records were also broken yesterday, 92 for a high in Portland, which smashed the record of 86 degrees. Bangor also tied their record yesterday. So yesterday's 92 degrees at the Portland Jetport was the third hottest May temperature since records began there, and it is the hottest since August 12th. So since it's been a while, maybe you need a little bit of a refresher. The UV has been very high today, so you certainly need the sunscreen. I think I've reapplied almost 3 times already out here because I did get a little bit of a sunburn yesterday, so certainly something to remember now that it's getting towards late spring and we're approaching summer. And you should be drinking water all year, but extra important when it's hot and humid like it is today, especially if you're playing sports or working outside. You make sure you want to drink plenty of water and take frequent breaks in the shade if necessary. Now, we've seen a lot of people at the beach today, especially going into the water. We even saw some people swimming. So just make sure you do take those precautions because the ocean, river, and lakes are still very cold. So here in Willard Beach, where the sun is beating down, we will start to see a little bit of that cooling later. Brian and Amanda, I'll send things back to you in the studio.
All right, Dana Osgood live for us in South Portland tonight. Thank you, Dana. In the news, Maine State Police say they have found human remains at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in Kittery.
State Police say civilian divers found those human remains in the water. This is around 10 o'clock this morning while inspecting a barge. Those remains will be taken to the office of the Chief Medical Examiner to identify that person and determine how they died. Officials right now say there is no threat to the public.
2 people are okay after their boat capsized near Orland. Firefighters say it happened shortly after 2 o'clock this afternoon on Toddy Pond. 7 first responders went out on a rescue boat to help. They say despite the wind, they were able to tow the boat to shore and secure it.
Immigration rights groups here in Maine say they are once again seeing an increase in immigration enforcement activity across the state.
It comes after a major ICE operation in January that led to about 200 arrests. News Center Maine's Alex Haskell explains what advocates say they're seeing now.
Leaders with the Maine Immigrants' Rights Coalition tell me they first started noticing an increase in ICE activity around Patriots' Day last month. They say since then, it hasn't slowed down.
We have noticed an increase in calls to our hotline, the Immigrant Defense Hotline, as well as an increase in reports from our community partners about detentions happening to community members of theirs.
Ruben Torres is the Advocacy and Policy Manager for the Maine Immigrants' Rights Coalition. He says increased ICE activity is being reported in cities like Lewiston and Portland, as well as workplaces across the state.
We saw a number of detentions occur at farms over this last weekend.
Torres says calls to the coalition's Immigrant Defense Hotline about ICE sightings and detentions rose 6% over the past month, reaching roughly 130 calls. He says community partners are now reporting as many as 10 detentions a week, up from just 1 or 2 a week about 6 weeks ago.
We can hypothesize for many reasons why this is happening now, but overall we know that tourist season is upon us and that this is going to have a huge impact on the way that tourism is handled here in Maine.
The increased activity is also drawing concern from local leaders.
The reports of increased detentions are concerning.
Lewiston Mayor Carl Shaleen says many of the people being detained do not appear to match ICE's stated enforcement priorities.
We know from the past stories of those detained, they are not criminals. They are employees, neighbors, and friends.
In a statement to News Center Maine, a U.S. Department of Homeland Security spokesperson says, quote, DHS law enforcement has been delivering on President Trump's promise to arrest and deport criminal illegal aliens, including murderers, rapists, pedophiles, gang members, and terrorists. Since ICE's major operation in Maine in January, the agency says it has arrested about 200 people, but it has only publicly identified the same 4 individuals to News Center Maine. Their alleged crimes include aggravated assault and obstructing justice. Torres says the current enforcement activity is different from the immigration surge earlier this year.
What we're seeing now is a shift in that the people who are most visible to the immigration pathways and processes are the ones who are most vulnerable. So
this increase in ICE activity here in Maine is having an impact on local communities. Friends of Congress Square Park says it's canceled a public arts event on Friday because of this increased activity. In Portland, Alex Haskell, News Center, Maine.
The Department of Homeland Security has yet to answer a question we asked yesterday on how many people it's detained in Maine during the past week.
In the aftermath of the deadly explosion and fire at Robbins Lumber, first responders are highlighting the importance of volunteer fire departments.
Nearly 300 firefighters helped with the response in Searsmont, and many of them were volunteers.
The volunteer fire service needs help. If you've ever considered volunteering, now is the time.
That's State Fire Marshal Sean Essler speaking in a press conference yesterday. He says communities like Searsmont depend on their volunteer fire departments. Essler says departments need all kinds of volunteers, not just to fight fires, but to help with logistics, community outreach, and a whole lot more.
News Center Maine's Ryan Bell takes a closer look at the role volunteer fire departments played in Searsmont just last week and in our communities every day.
For 26 hours straight, this truck and these hoses poured water on the fire at Robbins Lumber Friday.
I've been doing it for 38 years, and I've only witnessed a few fires that were of the capacity of this.
But the equipment didn't put out the blaze. People using it did, and nearly all of them are volunteers.
They don't do it to be called a hero. They do it because they want to protect their community and their fellow man.
Liberty Fire Chief Bill Gillespie says most volunteer firefighters get paid little to nothing for their service, often working full-time jobs in addition to their post at the department.
The people that commit and volunteer and do this don't think about, well, this may be my last day here on Earth.
Across our state, there are a dwindling number of heroes left. According to Gillespie, volunteerism is at an all-time low.
The old adage that keeps coming up is, what if they don't come? What if you call 911 and no one came? And that's a harsh reality that we're dealing with.
We had to have a tragedy to maybe wake up the state of Maine and say, hey, folks, look what we need.
Leaders with the Maine State Federation of Firefighters say about 80% of Maine departments are entirely volunteer. In Waldo County, Belfast is the only department with full-time firefighters.
There was not nearly enough manpower to do what we needed to do.
Waldoboro Fire Chief Paul Smeltzer traveled more than 20 miles to lend a hand at Robbins Lumber.
You always hear firefighters describe the fire service as a family, and the other day was just an example of it.
He hopes to see more people join the ranks.
For a lot of us, it's the passion part of our lives.
Because our state is reliant on those who answer the call to duty.
Everybody that will come and volunteer for the community and selflessly give are heroes. But unfortunately, sometimes heroes go unnoticed.
And are ready to sacrifice anything for their neighbors. In Waldo County, Ryan Bell, News Center, Maine.